On today's episode of the Cryptoverse, I catch up with the lovely Amanda B. Johnson. Vaultoro is the one-of-a-kind online exchange where you can trade between gold and Bitcoin. Reserves can be audited online at any time and are protected from confiscation and company failure. Sign up for a free account today by checking out the link in the video description below. Hi there guys, and welcome to the latest episode of the Cryptoverse, your regular dose of news and commentary on Bitcoin, cryptocurrencies and blockchains. I am your host, Chris Coney. Today is the 7th of March, 2017. So let's do all the normal segments before we get on to Amanda B. Johnson. We begin with the market roundup, and a certain amount of certainty has returned to the markets today, in the sense that I do not see any double-digit moves up or down in the top 20. In fact, the biggest loser today is Monero, here ranked at number 5. It shaved 6.02% in the last 24 hours, and that leaves a Monero coin at $14.58. For the biggest winner, we have to go all the way down to number 20. Here it is. It is Ardor, appearing as the biggest winner once again. 3.76% gain for Ardor, putting it at 1.6 cents per coin. Now, overall, there are a lot more losers in the top 20 than there are winners. In fact, Dash is the only coin in the top 10 to be up today, and it's continuing to hold out at number 3 spot, and it's up at $46.16 a coin. Factom, actually, if I go down a bit to number 12, there's Factom. Factom has also managed a respectable 3.04 gain. However, that's another non-mineable currency, so you have to be careful when looking at the market cap of these types of coins, because as someone quite rightly pointed out to me in the comments about Ripple, if a load of new coins are issued, that can put the market cap up without any new demand being created. And it might look like the overall value of the chain has gone up, but it's not from real market demand, it's from an increase in the money supply. So that's something to look out for. In terms of the Bitcoin price chart then, it looks like one of those two possible outcomes that I mentioned yesterday has actually played out. Now, if you watched yesterday's episode, you'll have heard me say that we're either looking at a breakthrough that top of 1300 or a breakdown below this very steep trend line that I've drawn for the most recent price move. And what we actually got was a break of the steep trend line, which means after this episode, I'm actually going to remove that line because it's now been broken. And while we have this red candle today, the price is still consolidating within a range, which I'll draw for you here. The range is around 1250 at the bottom and about 1300 at the top. So that's the next thing to watch out for. In fact, looking at it right now, the price is at 1246, so it's peeping down below that $1,250 mark. So actually, let me correct the bottom end of that range. Let's take the low of this candle from today. That's 1232. Okay, so let's call the bottom of the range 1230 and the top of the range 1300, because that makes it a lot cleaner. That makes it all of those candles fit inside it. And then if we have a move outside of that, we'll know about it. And of course, it could either break 1300, it could break down below 1230, and of course, it could always continue to go sideways for a while. So we'll see what happens with that. Now moving on to take a look at the Litecoin network to see how Segregated Witness is getting on. Up again today, shy of 1% gain. We're now sitting at 22.13% support. On our way to 75% is the goal. Now I'm looking at my data here, and I think there's only been 3 days on record, on my records anyway, where Litecoin actually lost support. It's been up every day since then. And this is out of maybe 30 days that I've been tracking this. The projection then is that the 12th of June 2017 will see Litecoin activate Segregated Witness, and the deadline is around at the end of January 2018, so that means it's going to make it. In terms of Bitcoin, Bitcoin has slid support today. It's shaved 0.3% support, sitting at 25.9%. You know, there was the Anarchapulco conference recently, and at Anarchapulco, Roger Ver, I think he actually made a bet. He offered a bet. He said, I bet anyone money that segregated witness will not activate on the Bitcoin network. He wasn't saying that I bet you it's a bad idea. All he was saying was, I bet you money that it will not get activated. And I wouldn't bet against him, put it that way. I would bet with him. I would put money that this is not going to activate on the basis of my study, one, and two, the fact that this has a 95% threshold and it has a deadline. So it's just 95%. Given all of the contentiousness about the scaling solutions, I just can't see it. I can't see it activating. And at the current rate, it's looking at November, the 12th of November 2018 for activation. That puts it, well, the activation date is November of this year, so it would put it a year too late. In the news segment today, I bring you a little treat in the form of a catch-up chat that I had with the lovely Amanda B. Johnson, previously a journalist for the Cointelegraph, creator and the host of the Daily Decrypt, and now the writer and host of Dash Detailed. I spoke with Amanda yesterday and asked her about her attendance at the Anarchapulco conference in Mexico, where she did a speech recently. We spoke about Roger Ver and the Bitcoin network congestion, and we bonded a bit around the trials and tribulations of being content creators in the passionate world of cryptocurrency. And love or hate Dash, she is a lovely lady, so without further ado, I give you Amanda B. Johnson. So joining me today is the lovely Amanda B. Johnson from Dash Detailed. Amanda, how are you doing today, my dear?
I'm well. Thanks for asking, Chris.
So, how was Anarchapulco?
Oh, it was warm.
Warm?
I left in the middle of a snowstorm, so certainly that was a bit of an upgrade in atmosphere.
Wow.
But aside from the weather, naturally, I was pleasantly surprised with the sorts of reactions I got meeting and speaking with new people who knew very little to nearly nothing about cryptocurrency at all.
And what kind of reaction did you get to that dress of yours?
Oh, to the dress. I'm sorry. I thought you said to the address.
To the address, we'll get to that.
Oh, well, to my dress, I would say there was a lot of fondness for that as well. I suppose it gave off a sort of Aztec or Mayan feel, which
exactly.
was perfect for the locale, so that was appreciated.
Yeah, I saw, actually, just take a quick diversion. On the Anarchapulco website, there's this great big painting that are they selling this or something? It's a lady's head with the third eye and stuff. It says bid on Mir One's stunning and potentially historic painting. Did you know what this is about?
There was a muralist there, and I don't know if he painted that live or if he had brought it with him, but yes, there was a muralist there, and it seems that his stuff was being auctioned off. That is the extent of what I know about it.
Oh, fair enough. That looks pretty cool. But it was just, you gave me the Mayan thing, and that made me think of that. Anyway, back to the point. So you were saying, like, you had a few, like, people who had, how much did they know about cryptocurrency? Little to nothing?
Yeah. I mean, as I would say, I still bump into people frequently who have definitely never heard the word Bitcoin or anything like that. Nobody who attends this conference would have fallen into that category because the person who threw the conference, Jeff Berwick, he's been talking about, he started talking about Bitcoin on his show, I'm told, as early as 2011. So certainly attendees of an event that he would throw have certainly heard that word, but a lot of times that's the extent of it. And so, yeah, they had perhaps heard of Bitcoin, may or may not, have any sort of sitting in a Coinbase account. They don't know what to do with it. They don't know what it is. They just thought some guy on the internet said they should buy it, so maybe they bought a little, but that was the extent of it for the kind of people I'm talking about.
Right, absolutely. Actually, when I watched the recording of your presentation, it made me think about that. Like, because any of the formal cryptocurrency events that are put on, it kind of gave me this awareness. I was like, well, when you look at the sales pages for these events, what doesn't immediately pop out to me, because we're in the industry, right, is there's an underlying assumption about how much a potential delegate knows. And even when I went to the Blockchain Money Conference last year in London, which was for people in the finance industry, still people who really didn't know much at all about Bitcoin or blockchains and stuff like that, they turned up paying like 500 quid for a ticket, which wasn't, I don't think, it was their target market, but those people still found their way in there. And the downside to that is that the presentations assumed a large amount of fundamental understanding and then built on that, which obviously went over some people's heads. You know what I'm saying? So with an Acapulco, that wouldn't have necessarily happened, even though there was a cryptocurrency aspect to it. I think it's good to have like a broad range of levels of complexity in those events to make sure that everyone gets value. You follow me with that?
Yeah, that seemed to be the case.
And did you speak to some people after that presentation and get some like appreciation for actually breaking it down?
Um, oh, I think so. I mean, no one in particular said, "Hey, all right, maybe what this one guy said sort of summed it up." But this one guy did come up to me afterward and he said, "My goodness, I came to Anarchapulco to learn about Dash." And I said, "Oh, really? Well, that's great." And he said, "No, I didn't know it. I didn't know you were going to be here, or I'd never heard of Dash before. I just sat in on your talk. And I now realize that hearing about Dash was the entire reason for my having come here."
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, there, as I had mentioned in my talk, there are two types of people. The type of person who looks at something like a cryptographic address and feels great about it and wants to talk about sharding and Merkle trees and uncles and et cetera, and orphans and all of that kind of stuff. And there's a time and a place for that for sure. And then there's everybody else. And I would venture to say that everyone else is pretty much 99.9% of the population at least. And so it pays to know your audience and to tailor what you're saying to that audience.
Right. What's odd about this, right, is that with so many, like I've run an online business, right, and it's in the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency space. And a lot of what I talk about is the stuff you just mentioned, like the technical aspects of blockchain because it's a new technology and this sort of stuff. But the fact it's an online business, I would have to confess that the sophistication of the technology that actually runs the internet now, like the TCP/IP and all of the evolutions that's gone through, I probably know more about how Bitcoin works technically than like TCP/IP, because it's got to that point now where you don't need to know about it. The reason that we sort of talk about the techie bits is because that's the majority of it at the moment, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's a great point. Certainly, some measure of success of a technology can be determined simply by how much does the end user need to know to engage with it.
Right, absolutely right, absolutely right. The other thing I noticed about after Acapulco, a number of people seem to have grabbed you for their own little interviews on their own shows. I mean, I saw at least 2 of those. Did you get people doing that, saying, "Hey, can I just do a quick interview with you?"
Oh, sure. There were, let's see, I think there were 4 that I can think of. I'm sure the one you saw with the German guy, Jens.
Yep.
There was the one that was published just today, Paradise Paradox with Kurt.
Right.
There was also a brief stint on the Crypto Show with Danny and Chris.
Oh, I didn't see that one yet.
Yeah, and they have a video of it as well. Apparently they do the Facebook live stream of their recording session sometimes, and so that's on YouTube as well. That's kind of neat. And then one that maybe nobody heard was with, or rather nobody heard because I didn't tweet it or see it posted anywhere on, for example, the Dash subreddit, was with a radio station that is syndicated on on various stations throughout the States called Free Talk Live.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it was nice. There was a large room where people could go in and use a sort of more soundproof area to do these things. And so, yeah, there were certainly ad hoc interviews, and it's nice to see that with things like YouTube or whatever your chosen platform, if anybody with the desire and a camera and a microphone can start competing and attempting to build an audience to compete with the most popular among them on any platform. And so that's nice. So there's lots of opportunities.
The crypto show was, like you were saying, I saw quite a few videos coming out of people they interviewed. I mean, they must have had some sore bottoms after the end of that, because they were just sat there like boom, boom, one person after another. And then they had the Roger Ver and Tone Vays debate, which I actually watched on, Tone Vays had a live stream going at the time. And, it's mad. And those two guys, the core guys, they're just not core. The two hosts, they're just there the whole time. Like, geez, those guys are hardcore. And don't they actually broadcast on actual radio as well, like FM radio?
They do. They, in addition to the internet distributed podcast, they're also distributed on a local radio station in Austin, Texas.
Nice one. I was wondering that. I knew they did it, but I didn't know where it was, Cool. So in terms of your talk itself then, I mean, how do you feel it went? I mean, from the viewer's point of view, it looks pretty good to me. But like leading up to it, how do you feel it went, all that sort of stuff?
Sure. I feel pretty good about it. Since watching it, I have noticed areas that I definitely would wish that I had been better at. I wish, for example, that I had had more of a facility when speaking about vault accounts. Reason I didn't is because the plan to have vault accounts be a part of evolution is a relatively new part of the plan. And so I'm not as well versed in them. I've not spoken publicly about them anywhere before. And so that was basically the first time I've spoken in public about vault accounts. And so yeah, just things like that I'm sure I can and will improve on with time.
I thought that was pretty good anyway, though, because with that, you like going back to the thing about how much do you need to know about the techie stuff. What I took away from that was like, okay, so if someone hacks your account at the worst possible level, they've still got to wait before the money can come out, and in that time you can intercept it or burn the money, right? So you don't really need to know technically how that works. It's just the experience of that feature is really the only thing people care about, unless you're a developer.
Well, good. I mean, I hope that's how it came across. The way you just said it was really great and much better than how I had said it. So.
You said it. That's the way I filed it in my head anyway. So, that was from you. You're welcome. All right, let's move on to Roger Ver's tweet, right? So I actually saw this at the time when he actually tweeted it out, because I'm following Roger Ver on Twitter. And it says here, when is this from? 2nd of March. It says, I did my first @pay payment yesterday. I moved $100,000 for approximately 0.3 cents, right? Not 3 cents, 0.3 cents. And it was confirmed in the next block. This is the bit that made me laugh. Bitcoin used to work that well. And I thought, cool, that's pretty cool. And then a few days after that, I thought, well, it probably wasn't the best time to do that, purely because it was right at the same time where Dash's price just absolutely exploded. So in terms of timing, I applaud him for trying an alternative, because I myself have actually said on the podcast, like, the Bitcoin fees are getting to the point now, if I want to pay my affiliates, it's just getting really, from a business point of view, it's really starting to become a hindrance, like seriously a hindrance. So I thought, well, now where Dash is at, I would seriously consider switching to that to pay my affiliates. So I thought, hey, good on Roger Ver. It just the wrong time, because of the prices were going so crazy. I think that's why he got a lot of criticism for it. Just bad timing, I suppose.
It's true. He did make that transfer on the day, I think, that Dash's price spiked the highest that it's ever been, which was something like $57 per coin. However, I don't know if he clarified, but to my understanding, we don't know for sure what type of payment he was sending. He may have just been moving his own Dash. Maybe he's going to launch
Right.
some masternodes, in which case none of his employees lost any purchasing power with the Dash. You know, maybe he was just moving his own.
That's a good point. And he's only got 140 characters, so yeah.
True.
Yeah. I think the response was a bit strong, perhaps. You know what people are like. There's something else I was going to ask you later on, but I assume you do read the comments in your YouTube videos, right? And
I do. I
right.
probably shouldn't, but I do.
You probably shouldn't. That's actually a good point. Sometimes you never know what you're going to get there, right? I was going to ask you, like, when you read those comments, to me, when I read them, it's fairly obvious from what people write who are the open-minded ones, and who are the ones that are only watching the video because they've already made up their mind. They almost want confirmation of what they already believe.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Something that I like to notice is I have maybe a small handful of people who make a hater comment every week, and it just makes me smile because even though they hate Dash so much, or they hate me so much, whatever it is, they still keep coming back every week
I
and
was going to
giving
say, is
me
it the same people?
another view on my video and telling YouTube's algorithm that this is a video worth commenting on. And I just couldn't be more glad about that.
Right. There's nothing greater gift they can give you than their attention, because they can only spend that in one place at a time.
Indeed.
That's the way I think of it as well. I mean, sometimes the critics who do actually make a good point, like they actually make a point rather than just straight out, making a personal insult or something, which is why I do read them, right? And actually, it's kind of helped me have a thicker skin by reading them, because over time I found they just affect me less and less.
You don't get hate comments, do you, Chris?
Yes. Oh, well, let's move on to this one. Did you see I put out a Dash-oriented episode last week?
The clarification of the Instamine issue, that's
Yes.
the one you mean?
Yep.
What happened with that?
Well, I knew. I thought twice about putting it out, just purely because I knew it would attract the best and the worst of both worlds, if you know what I mean. So
Sure.
in the last probably 3 months, it's had the most comments of any video I've put out.
Really?
It's currently sitting at 206 comments.
Good heavens.
It's the most liked and the most disliked video I've had in the last 30 days. It's currently sitting at 227 likes and 32 dislikes. I never get that many dislikes. Like, they're usually 10, maybe 11 max, right? And actually look out for those double-digit ones, but it just completely breaks all records. And the reason I mention that is because I suppose, like you were saying, some people have already made their mind up, and they still watch the episode anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I mean, I kind of, it was a little bit of bait, because I called the episode, quote, scam issue, quote, right? Because all I was doing was going through the official clarification and giving my layer of analysis on top of that. So
Okay.
I wasn't actually making a stand either way. I was saying, look, this document is only 1 page long. So I was sort of adding additional understanding to it, rather than saying, like, defending Dash or going after it. I was saying, look, this is what it means, because the document itself is quite technical. And
Okay.
that's why I don't understand about the downvotes. I'm like, what does that mean? It's just a thumbs down. I need more than that. Leave me a comment. But anyway, that's by the by.
Well, yeah, I can't say that I watched it because I thought, I've certainly read all the documentation myself. So this is news, what you're telling me.
Oh, really? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But your question was, do I get hate comments? You genuinely sounded surprised when I said that.
I did. Well, I mean, it seems like your show is crypto agnostic, and so I guess I would just be. But what am I saying? This is the internet. Certainly you get hate comments. I must have lost my head temporarily.
Well, I guess this is something I've learned from reading all the comments, right? I think there's two things some people are looking for. One is perfection, right? Like, whatever you do is never good enough, and that's what they go on the internet looking for, and that's why haha, gotcha, right? And then they'll make a comment based on one tiny thing that isn't quite perfect. So I get a lot of that. And what's the other one? Oh yeah, people are looking for me to be like 100% absolutely, utterly objective, right? Which is impossible, right? Because I have my own preferences, so I can't possibly be entirely objective. And that's why a lot of people come to my channel. But sometimes, quite often, I will, I can't help it because I have certain preferences. I will lean a certain way because I have a preference for this or that, or I think this is better than this. And if anyone gets a sniff that I might be pro something or against something, that's it. Boom.
Well, yeah, it's something I definitely picked up on over the years, having done both YouTube and text-based journalism, is that the people who imagine that there is a way that a human being could be objective about anything are the biggest fools of them all.
That's a good one. That's a good one. My favorite book is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And in that, Stephen Covey says the only way to be objective is to recognize we are all subjective. That's the only real thing you can say. We've all got our own preferences and whatnot, right?
I like that quote. I never heard that. That's nice.
You know the book?
I've heard of the book. I never read it.
Oh, Amanda, you should read it. It's so good.
Okay.
It's so good. All right, so Amanda, right, I assume the Dash Network funded that trip of yours to the Acapulco conference. Is that right?
Sure, yeah. I put in a proposal to cover transportation and lodging costs.
Cool. Now, the reason I mentioned that is because in my Dash video from last week, one of the things I said in my closing remarks was, and this is absolutely true, one of my dreams ever since I got into business for myself was in dreaming of a business model where everyone who contributed to the success of an organization reaped a fair share of the rewards, right? And that was one of the sort of philosophical things that attracted me to Dash, because it allows me in particular, not just to be a contractor for Dash, right? And you just get paid for it and that's it. But it's actually in my best interest to like go that extra mile because I want the work that I do to make Dash more valuable. And it's nothing to do with altruism or the idea of it being fairly treated. If you think of it purely from a self-interest point of view, I'll actually spend that extra hour doing whatever it is because it's in my direct personal interest to do so, right? And I'm thinking of it purely from a pessimistic point of view, worst case scenario. You're still going to do a superior quality of work, right? And I thought, well, I couldn't do that for the Bank of England. Like I could do a contract for the Bank of England and suddenly my British pounds become more valuable. It doesn't work the same. Whereas that's, you know what I'm saying? That's what attracted me about the whole Dash budgetary system.
Yeah, that makes sense. Certainly, this is something that I spoke to the guys on the crypto show about, which is, so these systems, any system, even a system of only 2 people, say you and your significant other, even just the complications and the complexities and the nuances in a relationship between only 2 people are enough to fill volumes and entire lifetimes with. Now you multiply that by how many individual humans are attempting to work together on a blockchain network. It is, the complexities and nuances are innumerable. They are incalculable. We cannot even fathom them, or at least I can't.
Right.
And so in a web of complication like that, the best shot that we have at getting people to behave in a way that is beneficial for the product is just to as best properly align their incentives as we can to make it profitable for them to make our customers happy, and for there to be the opposite of profitability, for there to be a financial loss for them to act in a way that makes our customers unhappy. And that is the absolute most that can be done.
Absolutely. I have this, I do spout a lot of philosophical principles on the podcast. And the one that came up for me there was, I say, remember that whatever you reward, you get more of. And whatever you punish, you get less of. So that principle is, I would believe it's universal. So that's the thing about, I suppose, the legal system. It's supposed to punish bad behavior, and then, well, there's no upside though. Upside is you're free. You don't get put in a cage instead of, putting people in prison. It's not much of an incentive, is it? Bad stuff doesn't happen to you. Isn't that much of a positive outcome?
That's it. I never thought about it that way. That's funny.
But before someone in the comments, excuses me becoming a Dash shill, like I always get called. This, what we're talking about here, though, is isn't this more a function of a DAO than Dash specifically? I know Dash acts like a decentralized autonomous corporation, right, or organization, but that whole thing about everyone mucking in at the same level and getting equal reward, that's not necessarily specific to Dash itself, is it? It's more of that's how DAOs are supposed to work.
I don't know how DAOs are supposed to work. I think we're the first functioning DAO. I mean, it could be said that there's at least one other network with a much lower market cap that also has stakeholder voting. But their system has not proven to be quite so robust.
Yes.
And so, yeah, I don't know how a DAO is supposed to work, but it seems that whatever we're currently doing is working relatively well.
I like it. Yes. Even that's a slight mistake on my part there, because even if whoever conceived of the idea of a DAO, that's a trap, like supposed to work. What does that mean, right? Because how many times do our expectations turn into reality, especially when we're breaking new ground like this? So if you say, yes, I've invented this thing, it's called a DAO, and this is how it's going to work. Not going to happen that way, right?
No.
As soon as you get more than, like you say, 2 individual human beings involved, the outcome is anyone's guess, right? Possibilities are endless. So,
and this is really the crux between software and humans. That's very interesting for me to read comments and papers and things online where on one end of the spectrum you have the type of person who understands human incentives. You know, maybe he might even call himself an economist or something,
right.
And he'll write about money or value transfer or whatever. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have programmers who've been probably writing code since they were 7 years old.
Right.
And they'll talk about, well, game theory says that the code should, make people work, or I have a hard, because I come from more, I'm closer on the economic end of the spectrum. And so it's interesting for me to watch programmers publish papers where they say, well, according to all my calculations, the code should work like this, and people should respond to it like this. And quite often, like you mentioned, Chris, that doesn't happen at all, right. Because the programmer in question imagined that code can change human behavior simply by the fact of its existence. Right. And that's something that I think a lot of programmatic types are going to wake up to in the coming years, which is the code you write does not compel human behavior. For your code to exist, humans must first be attracted to it and want to use it.
Absolutely. Right. So that is a very good point. It's approaching the problem from the wrong end. So like I would much, I think it's wiser to start from an economic mindset, which is the study of the people first, their wants, desires, motivations, likes and dislikes, and then reverse engineer that to the point where you go, right, now we understand the problem, quote, or the desire, and then you design the solution on paper, and then you create it with the bricks and mortar or the code or the whatever. Now, the trouble is, if you are a developer, that might seem to diminish your role and importance in the whole process, because, all right, so now I'm just a bricklayer, am I? And I would say, well, yeah, kind of, because by the time it's time to lay the bricks, we've already decided on the purpose of the building, we've already decided on the blueprints, we've already decided on, what the facility is going to do for people, how we're going to attract people. That's got nothing to do with bricks and mortar or code, nothing to do with it whatsoever, right? And coming from the other end and say, right, the architect and the bricklayer gets together and goes, this is the building we want to build, and no one turns up because it's ugly as hell, or it might be beautiful, but it might be completely non-functional, and people can't find the bathroom or the restaurant or whatever it is, you know what I mean? So it has to be reverse engineering the human aspect and then using the technology as a tool and not the master. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the most cost-effective way to achieve this is if you can find that rare person who is both economically literate, and I almost don't even like to use the word economics, by the way. I'm just going to say literate in human tendencies,
Okay.
as well as able to program. And that's a
Hmm.
rare person. That's the kind of person Evan Duffield is, in my opinion. And I imagine he has a handful of others working for him who are similar. And I mean, it's just a rare thing in general that there is a person who is highly knowledgeable in two distinct areas. And that kind of person, I think, is going to find themselves highly monetarily rewarded and already has done so to a degree.
I agree with you. When I started my career, I ran a number of marketing agencies. So that was sort of the bridge between code, like building website code and so on, and the creative side, like drawing the pretty pictures and so forth. And that was always the breakdown between the vision that the client wanted. I want it to look like this, work like this, and somehow translating that so the developers could build it. And I think didn't you call them unicorns, these people who
Yes,
have the two. Now,
absolutely.
right. Now I agree with you that the value isn't just economist plus developer. It's much more than that, because so much is lost in translation. Once the economist understands the human factor, imparting that understanding without losing anything to the developer is a really, really, really difficult thing to do. Because what we've got language, we've got diagrams, it's fine, but it's not the same as sort of telepathically sending that understanding to them. So if you don't have to do that, if the economic understanding is inside the same brain as the development skill, we might actually have a chance of accurately reflecting the vision in reality.
Sure, sure. And I don't know, uh, I think that being a bricklayer that would be a cool job. I mean, even the number of people who are able to write computer code in this world is so few that they themselves, even if they have no understanding of economics, are able to command relatively high monetary rewards for their services. And so the division of labor has shown us that we can turn out a nail or a pencil more quickly, the more individual tasks that can be broken down. Like the first person, acquires the metal. The second person, I don't know if there's smelting involved. Someone smelts, someone hammers, someone refines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so uh, it's okay if there are developers who don't have economic understandings, because they can specialize in what it is that they do, in writing the specific code that they write. And as long as somewhere along the assembly line, so to speak, of the product, there is a person who first laid out the design of what the software should be, that by the time it gets to the person who's going to write it, that can also be fine if he didn't design it. Dividing up the labor is what makes us the most efficient that we can be. And being a well-paid bricklayer is a pretty damn fine job, if you ask me.
Oh, absolutely. I hope I didn't come across as saying that the bricklayer or the coder was, and I know what I said earlier on that might have sounded this way, but diminishing their value in any way, shape, or form. Because if everyone in the production line isn't holding themselves to a standard of excellence in that work, well, it could bring the whole house of cards down, right? You could have the perfect understanding of the market, perfect economic plan, perfect incentives aligned, and then you get the DAO, for example, the DAO, the DAO, the actual DAO, the DAO fiasco, where,
The disaster, you mean?
the disaster, yeah, let's call it that, where that was, again, even people debate whether that was a, quote, mistake or not, and that's the Ethereum split thing, but we'll not go into that. But that was where the problem was. It was actually in the laying of the bricks. And to use the real estate analogy, well, that could literally bring the house down if that wasn't done to a standard of excellence. So I hope it didn't come across as if I was saying that.
Oh no,
that
not
was
at
the
all.
case. Right.
And at the end of every product coming to market, The only way its performance even matters is if anybody bought into it or not. If no one had purchased DAO tokens because they thought to themselves, hey, this is pretty new, I'm not sure this has been tested enough, or hey, I'm not sure about, I don't know these developers, I'm not able to judge their track record for myself, so I won't buy for now, etc., etc. If no one had bought a single DAO token, we would not be having this conversation today, and there would be no such word as the DAOzaster.
Right.
And so truly, the people ultimately responsible for that and anything like it were the buyers. They made it possible.
They did. And my stance on that was like, if you violate another principle, which is never invest anymore, then you can afford to lose. So if the DAO disaster happened and you go, oh my God, I can't afford to lose this money, well, then you broke that principle, right? Clearly, the more emotional reaction you have to it, yeah, you probably broke a fundamental principle there, and became emotional about it because of the loss, the chance of losing that money. Not good. So, Amanda, is there anything else you want to talk about today before we part?
Oh, golly. No, I don't think so.
Okay, so how can the listeners reach you if they want to follow your stuff?
Sure. Well, I always hope to gain more followers on Twitter. I'm at @Detailed. And then I publish a weekly show called Detailed on YouTube every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern Time. And as of just this week, actually, my partner Pete and I will be adding a second weekly show. It's called the Detailed Spotlight. It will be published on Fridays at 12 noon Eastern Time, and it will be an interview show that showcases my having a chat with various what I would call important or relevant actors in the Dash space, and I think you'll especially like who I choose to kick off this series with this coming Friday.
Oh, you've teased us with that one. I like it. And you must be a sucker for punishment, adding an extra show, because me doing a show a day, that is a grind, let me tell you.
I know you know all about it.
Yeah, sure. All right, well, Amanda, I hope you'll come back and talk to us soon, will you?
Yes.
Okay, great stuff. So thanks for joining me today, guys. If you liked this episode, hit the like button. If you disliked it, hit the dislike button. Please leave me a comment below with some feedback and get subscribed. And please support the Cryptoverse and boost cryptocurrency adoption by going to cryptoversity.com/podcast and becoming a patron. From just a few dollars a month, you can secure Cryptoversity's future, get unlimited access to all Cryptoversity courses, and access a private patrons-only chat group where you get direct access to me. That is all for today, guys. I'll be back tomorrow with another episode of the Cryptoverse. So until then, it's me, Chris Coney, saying bye for now.